Alrighty, good morning everybody. Thank you very much for making it out on a Sunday. The very first thing I would like you to do is take out your phones and switch off the ringers. More than happy for you to keep them on, tweet, text, do whatever you want to do, but just please turn the sound off. My name is Shadrock, and I'm very briefly, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, going to tell you a little bit about what this is. I'm really excited to see some of the folks, some of the presenters, and other people stepping in, because you will have an opportunity to ask questions. And we got some really good feedback yesterday, and I really like to see that back and forth between people who are kind of practicing and working in different aspects of risk or community work or whatever, seeing what's happening with this technology. So my name is Shadrock, and I work for a Kenyan nonprofit called UR. And what we do is we build software. The software was born out of a need that Kenyans had to solve a Kenyan problem. There was some really bad post-election violence in 2007. The government put a media blackout on any information. And the communities couldn't understand where things were happening. Where are outbreaks of violence? Where are resources that we can use? Where are safe havens? Where's conflict happening, etc. So they created this software as a way to start curating information from different blog posts, getting information on SMS, and put information out on a map. So they became their own information distribution system. The software is open source. You can go to ushahidi.com and learn about it and play with it. It's fantastic. But the reason I ended up here doing this is because we have a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation to support the 100 resilient cities. That was what they were speaking about this morning. So I came to Boulder. I grew up just north of here, so I wanted to work in a city that I knew pretty well. It's also my first time working domestically in a long time, which is interesting. But I came here and I started to meet all these amazing people who were already doing a lot of wonderful technology work. A couple of the groups that have been really helpful and have really strong active membership have been Code for Boulder. They're pitching today. Also, Analyze Boulder is a great meetup group of people who are just doing citizen science and different types of analysis. There's Girl Develop It, which is a fantastic coding school for women. There's Refactor U, which Sean Dakin, one of the judges, is running. So there was a ton of good technology already happening, and I met those folks, and then I met a lot of wonderful volunteer people and service delivery folks, people working in accounting, some of the people who are working for Boulder Flood Relief, now starting to spin out into BOCO Strong and get involved in all sorts of other stuff. So I felt like my job wasn't necessarily to come here and implement a technology, but my job as a technologist was just to come here and support the technology that was already happening. So that's why we decided to do this tech challenge. And what we've done is we did a series of stakeholder interviews and we started going and meeting with people. And there were some certain themes that came up through those discussions that we thought technology could respond to. Those themes were lowering the barriers to volunteer registration and improving coordination, information management within and across organizations, community capacity and preparedness, community and citizen feedback for government, and tools and analytic methods for supporting the monitoring and evaluation of human services policies. So a lot of information management and data and analysis issues kept coming up. So we put a call out, an open call for people to submit ideas, and we have 5 fantastic panelists. 3 of them pitched yesterday, 2 of them pitched today. And the way this works is they have 5 minutes to get up and pitch their idea to our panel of judges. There's going to be about 15 minutes of back and forth between the judges and them. I'll open it up for about 5 minutes for anybody in the audience that has questions. This is something that's going to be working in Boulder. So if you're a Boulder resident, this is going to be an open source technology that is responding to something in some way. It's a great opportunity for you to ask questions about it. And then, so we have 2 pitches this morning. I rule with an iron fist on the clock, so I'm stopping people mid-sentence at the end of their 5 minutes, at the end of the 15 minutes. So when that's done, the judges are going to scurry away. They only have a half an hour to figure out who's going to be the winner, which is going to be tough because they've all been really good so far, and I know the 2 we had this morning are good. And then we'll reconvene in here, and I'll announce the winner, and tell you a little bit about the follow-up, and then that'll be that. So I'm going to run a pretty tight ship. Very briefly, I want to introduce the judges. So we have Greg Guibert, who most of you heard speak this morning. He is Boulder's first Chief Resilience Officer, and before this he worked at the National Center for Atmospheric Research as a Risk and Development Project Specialist to develop and manage innovative projects that address complex societal and environmental challenges. Sean Dakin has a decade of experience as an innovator and strategist. He is the founder and CEO of Refactor U, which accelerates the learning and development of world's aspiring creatives and makers and technologists. And we have my good colleague, Michelle Hamilton-Page, who works with me at Ushahidi, and is a digital strategist in online, social, and mobile media, working in the public health, hospital, and NGO sector for the last 15 years. She's led a lot of health tech innovation projects for diverse communities and stakeholders. So we've got a good range of some government stuff, some private sector stuff, some nonprofit stuff that are going to be interacting and judging with the pitches. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get us started on our first pitch, which is going to be the Trends Online pitch. And this is going to be presented by Jerry Mitchell-Brown. And this up. Nope. Risk. What is my tolerance for risk? What is my exposure to risk?
Take the middle one.
There we are. So Jerry is the Director for Corporate Social Responsibility for the Boulder-based Rally software and a leader of Code for Boulder, and this is how I first met her. Code for Boulder is a local brigade of Code for America. It's an all-volunteer civic tech group creating open source solutions to improve the community. She's also joined by Erica Stutzman, who is the Director of the Trends Report at the Community Foundation of Boulder County. Jerry, come on up.
Good morning. This is Mike Boyers. Mike is a local businessman with the time and resources to command an in-person presentation of the Trends Report. I happened to meet with him on a Wednesday morning. The Trends Report is an every other year indicators report. We measure 150 ways on the quality of life in Boulder County. I like to call it low tech and high touch. The low tech is sitting right in front of you. That's the Trends Report. It's our indicators report. We do put it online as a static thing. But then also, I go to presentations. This is the high touch. I present it to groups of people, civically minded, policymakers, other nonprofits, and we present the data to them in person to kind of resonate and give some context to what the data says. Based on that presentation, Mike formed an informed opinion, a data-driven decision on a policy that matters to him. He fired off an op-ed to the local newspaper, which was published on Sunday morning. And that's just one of just a myriad of examples of how people are reaching the data, low tech, high touch, but they're using it to make informed decisions. We're trying to make it high tech to reach more people in a relevant way.
All right, fast forward 1 year from today. What if, after reading Mike's article, people who were interested in finding out what this trends things were could easily search on their computer or their device like this and find a vibrant online resource like this one from the Miami Foundation? What if everyone in Boulder County had access to this data in a modern, accessible way? What data-driven decisions would they make? Trends Online will make visible the most pressing needs in our community and connect people with ways to take action. It's an investment in our long-term resiliency by shining a light on the chronic stresses that our community faces. The data will be presented in easy-to-understand visuals, along with analysis to help us understand why these issues are really important to pay attention to. The basis for this project is a solid partnership between Code for Boulder and the Community Foundation. The solution will be built primarily from volunteers for Code for Boulder that you heard about. We are a network of over 130 all volunteer brigades across the United States that work with local government and nonprofit to benefit our community. Trends Online will be built by the people, for the people. Code for Boulder volunteers will research, prototype, design, and build. Funds from the Tech Challenge would kickstart our development phase by working with an experienced designer collaboratively with our volunteers. By creating this open source solution that's designed for reuse, we will reach more people beyond Boulder County. Our customer is the Community Foundation, who will own the Trends Online product. Our known users are those people that are already using Trends Online to help the community, and we will greatly expand our reach, both in diversity and number. Our objectives are simple and powerful. Recently, I heard the term techquity, and I think it addresses the first 2 points very well. to level the playing field and increase inclusivity, and then to present things in an easy to understand way. In addition, an online resource will make data more available than you could publish up to every 2 years in this magazine. And having a report in hand doesn't necessarily connect you with organizations that are taking action on the issues that you care about. Trends Online will strengthen that engagement. So you have a decision to make very soon. Why should you fund Trends Online? It is the right project. Trends Online is already a valued resource. We can increase that impact that it has on the community. It is the right people. There's a solid partnership that will see this through, and a group of volunteers that are already working on the research phase. It's the right timing. We just got started, and funds infused in the spring will make this product available sooner. But last and probably most important to you is that it's the right fit for the UR Boulder goals. It will improve our long-term resilience by shining a light on these chronic issues that, if not addressed, will weaken our ability to respond when the acute crisis hits. And it definitely strengthens engagement, one of your other important factors. It already calls to action individuals and organizations. Now imagine, what if Trends Online connected people, not by sitting in the audience or holding up this, but through this?
Boom, 5 minutes on the dot.
Put him in.
Nicely done, on the dot, very good. All right, so now I'm going to hand the mic over to the judges, and they're going to debate, so be thinking about some questions, and I will moderate as you.
Hey, nicely done. Two quick questions. One is, if you could talk a little bit more about how you're going to connect people just by putting the data online. There's a gap there for me. And then the other piece is, and you may have touched on it, I was scratching some notes, so will the data be updated in the same every other year cycle? Okay, so it's more frequent. Okay, maybe we can talk about that a little bit. Thanks so much.
Okay, I'll talk about the first one, and I'll let Erica talk about the second one. How we're going to connect people, we just started our research phase, so we're using very much design thinking and lean startup approaches to really understand the problem. One thing we know for sure is that people need to connect through their current online experience. We don't want to add some way that's outside their current experience. So we need to make it really easy for them when they read something on Trends Online and they say, wow, the achievement gap is really hitting me, or aging in place, or whatever that issue is, that they can then find the resources, find the organizations that are already addressing those issues, and then follow up with those organizations. So mostly it's to find the organizations that are reacting to the data and doing something to address it in the community.
So I was a newspaper woman for 20 years, and I heard for the last 20 years, every morning of my life, print is dead. And now I work on this. So it's biennial, it's super expensive to put out. We are a grant-making organization, so every dime we spend on this sort of thing is money that we're not giving to nonprofits. It is biennial because it's big data, but it also contains information that we knew a year and a half ago, right? Because it's so expensive to put out, we're only doing it every 2 years. I personally am the only person who works on this. I'm able to update the information today if I had a format for it. But the foundation's not going to give me 10 grand to put out another 8,000 of these and hand them out to people. So it's very low tech. If we had the ability and the platform to update it, we would absolutely be able to do that. And then the high touch part is just presenting it in person to people. There's only so much time a human being has to go around to organizations, and there's only so much time that those organizations have to spend with me, right? So if somebody has their phone with them and they're looking up data to do a grant proposal of their own, to solve a solution, to come up with a position on a policy that's going to be on this November's ballot, for them to have it relevant, updated, and in their pocket would be just unbelievably powerful to me. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So you may have heard us yesterday, Jerry, asking one of the things that we want to know is how are you going to measure success? What does that look like for you? And maybe talk a little bit about impact too. So I'm sure in some of your planning you probably already have some of that evaluation stuff. It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, so I actually brought notes that we put in our application because I wanted to remember about measuring impact, certainly through web analytics, the number and type of connections to other resources. So how much do we make those connections among different groups? how often Trends Online would be cited itself as a resource is another way to measure that impact. And then through user interviews and surveys. We already know who the main users will be, the nonprofits that already reach out to us, the city planners, faith-based groups. We'll reach out to them and find out if it's meeting their needs. And then we'll also be monitoring Trends Online information and how often it's referenced and shared in the community compared to exposures that we get with the print magazine.
So
did that cover it?
Yeah, that's part of it. So, but what would success look like for you? So a year down the road, it's up, it's running.
So success would definitely be that we are having more current data out there.
Yeah.
That it is really easy to understand. Like people come to it and go, oh, I get it. School readiness is a big deal in our community. Poverty is a big deal in our community, although it's not really visible. So really shining a light on those. Reaching more people than is available today. Right now, 8,000 copies go out to different people, and many people get to sit in Erica's presentations, but there's a lot of people not being reached. Some of our expanded user group personas are young startup worker, or what we call Max's parent, you know, your everyday person who might not, you know, be able to make it to those things. And then that engagement, connection to each other and to organizations to take action. That's definitely required for success.
Thanks. I have two questions. They're not related, but do you imagine on this tool, I'm interested a little bit more in the interactivity between the data and the people who might be using it, and so can you imagine people suggesting new indicators to you, and maybe a forum for, an online forum for discussing those trends or those issues in real time, like a chat type function?
Absolutely. You know, almost every day, every work day of my life, almost, I have somebody calling me up and saying, can you tell me, it's something, it might be something really specific, like how many Hispanic kids are in preschool who are under the age of 5 in the city of Boulder versus the city of Lafayette. And I have the ability to go out and find that number for them and give it to them. Well, it's locked up, right? It's locked up in this telephone conversation between me and a person who already knows where I am and how to reach me. If we could have a blog and online data and an interactive, updatable thing, we absolutely could have a forum where people could say, this is what really interests me, right? So I'm coming in with high data, big data. The number of people earning $150,000 or more in the city, in the county of Boulder, is growing faster than the national rate. Our childhood poverty is growing faster than the national rate at the same time. Getting that big data out there is really important. If I had a truckload of people asking me about flood recovery, for instance, or I had a truckload of people talking to me about gun ownership and registrations in the county of Boulder, we could say, hey, this is an indicator that's important to the community, this is something that we can track over time, and this is something that we can update all the time.
Okay, and so my second question, thank you. My second question is you know, I mean, dashboarding's all the rage right now. The city of Boulder is making a major investment in that direction. How do you see this connecting or complementing or conflicting with that effort?
Haven't thought about it yet. I'm aware of that project though, through the city manager's office, but yeah, haven't gotten there.
As a place-based organization, I can say that we have the largest indicators project in the county right now. We are place-based, so it's just for Boulder County, but because we fund such a large array of things from health and human services and things that are important to the city and the county, but also all the way down to filtering to arts organizations and how much money they're making, filtering down to civic engagement and how many people of color are serving on boards and commissions. I mean, these are things that we can reach because we are a place-based organization that maybe individual departments of communities might not be focusing on as much. So I think there's a way for us all to work together and to complement one another, but this is sort of the overarching one that affects all impact, all facets of quality of life.
So 2 questions, maybe 3. So are there any barriers to doing this that are not tech related? I mean, are there organizational barriers, or there's data source barriers? What are some of the other barriers to doing this?
So a challenge of any all-volunteer group is keeping those people connected and people come in and out of the project. That's why it's important to have a very solid partnership. that Code for Boulder and the Community Foundation have committed to see this through, and we're going to keep working on it, but that is something that creates an interesting element to this work, is it's all volunteer driven. The skills and the time that people have. And then you had one about the data.
Yeah, so sources of data, or the challenges with that.
Yeah. How many of you have kids in the school system right now? Okay, this is exciting stuff. So we have, it's an indicators report, we rely on longitudinal data, right? So we want to look at things over time. That goes away, right? So the state decides they want to have a different standardized testing role, right? So all of a sudden my longitudinal data is changing rapidly, and I need to figure out how to capture that and how to illuminate the achievement gap that we have in Colorado and in Boulder County. And then what happens? All the kids opt out, right? So all of these parents decided their kids shouldn't be spending all this time on standardized testing. They opt out of the test, and somehow I need to capture the data and report it in such a way that's going to be relevant to our community, and there might not be a way for me to do it on that longitudinal way. But that's an indicators challenge, right? We all go through it. If we want to really look at communities, we need to face these challenges and report it in a way that's relevant and modern and accurate, which that's exciting.
One more question. So is the data that you have already available online? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
It is. It will take an individual a full-time job of weeks and weeks to access it.
I guess my question, my last question, I think that's not going to be my last question, to be honest, is rather than building, it sounds like a portal to connect people to this data, it sounds like you just need an API to that data, right? And let everybody else figure out how to present that and what that should look like. Because then
I should say, I should interject that there is some proprietary research in here, so I misspoke with that. There is some proprietary research in here that we pay for and do.
I think part of it is ease of getting to the data that's important to Boulder County and providing the analysis on why we should care. Because Erica can tell me that there are X number of kids that come to school, come to kindergarten not ready, and X number of them are Latino, and X number of them live below the poverty line. But I go, okay, why should I care? What's the long-term effect of that? How is it affecting our county? That's part of the important, the richness that it brings. So quick access to those resources that she might be grabbing data from U.S. Census and the state of Colorado and everything, but then providing that analysis as well.
And the raw data will be available as well as the sort of analyzed and already digested.
I would expect it is. Yeah, that is like, so you're a nonprofit and you are writing a grant report and you really need to know the raw data associated with a number of hybrid vehicles in Boulder County, that you could download that in a Google Sheet or whatever it happens to be.
The reason I ask is because the true impact of something like this would be that the community can build their own mashups and analyze it any which way they want, and that will drive new insights.
Right.
Well, and hopefully, as somebody who works for a nonprofit too, hopefully we will connect them with the resources where they can give. Boulder County has one of the lowest rates of giving, of charitable giving, out of any of the counties in the state of Colorado, and Colorado is at the very bottom of the list. And so, from my perspective, what I try to do when I go out with this data is, this is data, but this is what it means to us. We have huge gaps here, and we have the resources to address them. Let's work together in order to do that.
So you covered it a little bit in the presentation. I just was hoping maybe provide a little bit of clarity on what the $20,000 will actually do. You talked about kickstarting the development process. It's still volunteers, so what does that actually represent? Right,
so we would engage with a designer or design firm to help us create a design that the volunteers would build upon. So with the idea that, with a very solid foundation in terms of choice of tools and design aspects, that would launch us much faster than all volunteer group would without that support. We've talked to a local B Corp here in town, Dojo 4, that does design work for purpose-driven organizations, including right now they're working with the Community Foundation of Telluride and things like that, and we've talked to them about what this could look like. So that's a possibility, is we'd work directly with an organization like that to help us get going with a little bit more full-time design work.
Okay, so I'll be really quick.
If you have questions, start thinking about them.
Can
We'll
you
start
put the
taking
slide
questions.
back up of the timeline? And can you just say a little bit more? I know you touched on that you're doing research, and it sounds like you have a persona. So where are you in the, just recap for us really quickly where you are in the process?
We're just about to start empathy interviews with the Community Foundation first, and then with the first circle of consumers next. Really just getting started.
Do you have any questions? I have a question.
Hi, so my question is a little bit about the audience. So you said that nonprofits could go on and access and better find data. But then I think you said also would be to reach more people, to bring them in and to kind of understand, right, new consumers. So how would you kind of do outreach, or what would be the plan to bring those new people in to want to use them?
You know, hopefully, I mean, in my dream world, we would be, you know, Facebooking and tweeting it out to folks who were not customers of us before. And we would engage, we fund thousands of nonprofits over time, and hopefully we would engage those partners to get the word out about us and about the research so that everybody can have access to it. We call them friends. I mean, we're all nonprofits, so we're all competing for the same dollars in a sense. But as a grant-making foundation and as an indicators report, we do have a lot of friends out there who can help spread the word and hopefully reach younger people. Quite honestly, this is not the audience that I generally see, right? So I testified before the Planning Commission this week, and it was great. We know what the Planning Commission looks like, and we know what the type of people are who have the time in the middle of the day to take off of work and sit in a Planning Commission meeting, right? We know. So, and I also go to like high-end board commissions and boards of directors of all kinds of nonprofits. These are folks who have the time and resources to take time out of their day to sit down and talk about the contextual part of the data. Most of us don't have time for that. So we're reading the Times on our phone, or we're getting alerts for different things, and we're kind of accessing information that way. Our true goal is to take this product and to make it something that's accessible and modern.
So my question is, looking through the print version here, a lot of the data obviously comes from state agencies, things that are important at the state level. When you're looking at building this dashboard or a community service project, the chance to provide that back to other communities in the state is also pretty high, I would imagine. So first question is, like, what would you do to provide this in any way to counties or cities or parts of the state that don't have a 140-member Code for Boulder organization? Obviously it's open source, but there's a lot of work that goes into that as well.
Right.
And also, how can you go back to the state to improve the data collection that is being done that can help get other indicators for what you're looking to get?
You know, I think the opportunities are endless once we have the tool. Quite honestly, if you look up indicators projects, there are indicators projects in almost every single community in the United States. So that would be one route to go, where we could reach out to them and say, here's this open source product that we have. You have an indicators project already. Here's an easy, way for somebody low tech like me. It has to be somebody who doesn't have coding skills, right? Somebody like you who can go out and go enter the information and have your indicators project that's reachable to all people. The Community Foundation also, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's actually kind of a chain in a way. There are 1,400 community foundations across the world, mostly in the United States, but we have an instant tool where we could reach out to all 1,400 of those and say, we have an indicators project, you're familiar with us, you're friends with us, we know that you're already doing this kind of work and this kind of data collection. Here's a tool that we're using to reach more people in the community, and you can too. And there are community, as much as I complain about the achievement gap and the things that we have going on here in Boulder County, which I would constitute as crises, there are real communities in crises, right? There's Detroit, there are towns in Haiti, there are community foundations that are serving groups of people that could really use the tools that we could build here and that we could have the resources to build here that could really improve the state of their communities.
They've got 50 seconds left. Does anybody have a question?
Why not just use something off the shelf like Socrates?
We have not seen anything out there that's open source that would allow us to deliver the things that meet our objectives. And Socrates is not something we necessarily have access to. I know that's the City of Boulder, I believe, does. But this is a county-wide indicators report.
Quick question from the moderator. In 10 seconds, I'd like to know what proportion roughly of the data would be open versus proprietary, because you mentioned that it's both proprietary.
I think I could probably count it up, but I would say that probably less than a tenth is proprietary. The rest is from government.
Amanda, fantastic job. Everybody give a round. So as a couple people have mentioned, doing an Ignite talk is a bit of a special thing. This isn't exactly an Ignite format, but we're holding them to this 5-minute. You have to get all the good bits out. It's really challenging. So I really appreciate the work that all of our submitters have put into what is kind of a difficult format. And being willing to stand up here and face the fire, I think is fantastic. So next up, we have Mr. Paige Wana. And he is going to be pitching the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group app. So Paige is a water resource engineer and all-around tech nerd working at Lincoln Technologies to help Colorado cities understand the impacts of climate change to their water resource systems. In his free time, he's a volunteer mountain rescue volunteer here in Boulder. As someone who does a lot of stuff in the backcountry, I'd like to say thank you very much. So Paige, come on.
Thank you very much, Shadrach. Alright, where's the button? There we go. So I'm here to pitch you Responder en Route. So a lot of slides, I'm going to skip through a lot of it and we can always come back to it later. The Rocky Mountain Rescue Group has been serving Boulder County since 1947. We're staffed by a team of 60 volunteers, no paid staff, and with 160 calls per year, we are one of the busiest mountain rescue teams in the country. Only to be surpassed by some place like Yosemite. We're a 501c3 and we have a lot of depth here in the community of Boulder. If you bike, you climb, you ski, you hike, you do anything outside, if you get hurt and you're not on a road, we're the ones who come and get you. We're our backcountry ambulance service. We serve rain, snow, day, night, on the Flatirons, in the Indian Peaks, even if you're hanging from a cliff. And rescue is free. We don't charge for rescue. Simply by the fact that if we did charge for rescue, less people would call and they would get themselves in hairier situations. Our breakdown is about, over 5 years, we rescued about 468 hikers and about 200 of various types of rock climbers and 200 types of MISC, including ATVers, snowmobilers, skiers, mountain bikers. So if any of this looks familiar to you, we're coming for you and we're watching out for you while you're having your fun. So, why are we here? What's the problem? So, from the time you call 911, the information is routed to a dispatch center, and then we are sent this info on a digital pager. This thing. An analog or digital pager that we have to carry around with us. And after that, it's my job as a responder to either call, text, email, or call on the radio a series of operational sort of leadership, whose job is then to decide where is the patient, what are their injuries, what's the best trailhead access, because if you know about, if you guys have heard of Mount Sanitas, there's 9 different access points for Mount Sanitas, and a person could be near any one of those. Dispatch doesn't actually know that. And then additionally, do we have enough people to actually do it? So once we're able to deal with this crazy Byzantine game of telephone, we can actually show up and execute a rescue and save somebody's life. So in order to make an app to solve this tech problem, it needs to be simple, it needs to be customizable, and it needs to have a critical element of mapping in order to really bring all of our volunteers together and skip that whole back and forth radio conversation. We have a few key features. We've already interviewed the group. The group is 100% behind this. We have a few key features they've identified. The main one is, I have a phone, I get a page, I click the I'm responding button. Leadership knows, no phone conversation, no text, no email, no radio, nothing. I'm on my way. Leadership looks at it and says, oh, we have enough people, we don't have enough people. We have plenty of people, but it's a busy weekend, so we need you to be ready in 2 hours because there might be another one this afternoon. All of these things, a customizable platform makes this very simple to coordinate people and saves a ton of volunteer time. In addition, this goes above and beyond existing commercial applications by A, being open source and free, beyond the money you guys are going to give me, and B, being significantly simpler. A lot of apps are designed for very structured sort of fire and urban search and rescue responses, and this is very, very simple and stripped down. In terms of resiliency, this is a direct application to meet an existing need by a team that is ready to accept it. This will improve rescuer efficiency, improve volunteer man hours, which we log about 10,000 man hours a year just in volunteer time on the team. Better response times means improved patient care, safer Boulder County, safer Colorado, and we'll be there for you when you're out hiking and you twist your ankle. Our implementation plan, over about 6 months, we expect the focus group sort of process and app development process will get us to a beta testing period sometime early next spring with the intention of being fully operational and implemented in the field next summer when our busy season kicks up. Generally, we're busiest from May to September because that's when everybody goes outside and plays. So we have plenty of time. We think the schedule is very, very generous to get it done, and the team's ready to test it and do it. In terms of a regional application, so this is just for us, and excuse us for thinking that you want to just build something for us, but in addition, there's 18 volunteer mountain rescue teams in Colorado, more than 100 in the western US, and dozens of other teams that do very similar work with very uncertain sort of responses that need kind of well, you know, some sort of a gentle touch to actually get them organized. This sort of app, especially being developed open source, can be customized or just given to these organizations so that they can redevelop it and sort of fit it to their needs. So with that, I'll say we can do this with your help, and I'd love to take your questions.
With 15 seconds to spare, ladies and gentlemen. All right, judges, you know the drill.
Cool, so 2 quick questions. So this is an app for responders, not for patients?
Correct, yeah, this is responders would carry it, leadership would carry it.
Okay.
Yeah, it just bridges the gap between a 911 call and our arrival.
And very, very simply, it's just a decision support tool and a sort of a field service, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, cool. And I'll add one thing to that. It will not supersede any existing 911 services. Yeah. So this will not be a critical path from patient to us. So, you know, if for whatever reason the app or server side goes down, Amazon Web Services decides to crash again, sure. Our service wouldn't be interrupted to actually get a 911.
Okay. And then, who's going to build it?
So just for sake of time, I skipped over my partner. My partner is Inspiring Apps. They're a development house here in town. They built Fire and EMS apps before.
Okay, cool.
And is the 20,000 the full build-out cost, or is there other money here?
So part of the deal is that we have, there are a critical set of features that we would like that we'll be able to build within that initial build-out cost. And with the idea that we'll have other features identified through the sort of focus group startup process of it. That then if we get funds later or if we have volunteer time to actually do coding, we can build those additional features. So yes and no. So we want to build a functional app that actually solves a fair number of our problems, but we also want to have room to grow, assuming we have more funds in the future. This is a foundational tool.
So somebody who knows Boulder well, I've been here 12 years, you know, one of the issues, of course, in the mountains and in the canyon is cell technology. You won't get reception. So how do you address that?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great point, and we have there's a couple of different ways that's sort of dealt with. So on one hand, the vast majority of our rescues are front country. So that's basically Flatirons and east. Flatirons, El Dorado Canyon, Boulder Canyon, and some other parts north. So in that sense, the vast majority of our rescues would be covered by this. We also have technologies that we're in talks with Verizon now for getting access to, say, a mobile cell site, where, for instance, on multi-day search or something to that effect, we could bring in temporary cell access. So we're in talks for that, so that can solve that problem. And then the other side is that this is really for mission startup. This saves the coordination that several leadership would have to do right after the page, and usually that information is A, done by somebody in town, and B, most of the people who are responding are coming from town. So in the first 10 or 15 minutes, all that information is conveyed and available in a central location. So one more bit of that is it's critical that field leadership actually know how up-to-date their information is. And so we plan to have a feature in the app that's essentially gives you a big old red warning saying, no, we don't, no, your app hasn't been updated for the last half hour, whatever. So they know just how accurate their information is on response.
So can you talk a little bit more about the features? You mentioned mapping. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And then any other features that maybe you haven't covered that you're sort of your plan to start with and then build out.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And by all means, the list of features we have is by no means sort of complete. These were just initial ideas that people were very excited about. So one of them is the mapping feature in particular. When we get pages, our dispatch system is based on kind of an urban system, so we're given an address, and we have to go to this point. That address, like I said about Encinitas, is not always accurate. So the mapping feature gives leadership the ability to actually drop a pin and say, even though the app said here, your page said here, go to this place. This is where we need everybody to go. And then an ability to opt in and out of, as a responder, this is where my phone is. So I'm on the way, here's where I am, here's how far out your people are. So leadership can see that. So that's sort of the baseline mapping part, and there's plenty of room to grow that, including adding layers of Boulder County trail maps and other just sort of proprietary stuff that we've found out over the years of access points. In terms of other features, definitely needs to be able to coordinate simultaneous missions. We're in the sort of depths of the busiest year in our history. We're more than 20% over what we have, our historic previous maximum. And we had one summer, I think it was a Sunday this summer, where we had 5 simultaneous missions. So to be able to coordinate multiple missions is a feature that we want. As well as sort of an out-of-service calendar. So none of us are officially on call. Like I don't have a day of the week where I have to be. But what we try to do is provide sort of kind of a guideline for leadership to say, you know, I'm definitely available, you know, these days at these times, but I'm not available these times, and I can give them an idea several months out. So having sort of calendar feature built into it would really give leadership kind of an idea of how available the team is, you know. It's a busy summer day. Well, okay, well maybe don't go out and climb this today, guys, because there's a good chance someone's coming.
So, do you have a sense of when this tool is in place, what the improvement is will be, or do you have a target around that in terms of response time or lives saved, or I mean, what are your metrics that you're using?
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. So I think the biggest metric is man hours. The biggest metric is right now we can have 3 to 5 to more potential kind of leadership types, sort of organizing all that information that comes in via radio or text or email. And if we can reduce that to one person, our leadership are incredibly busy, because not only are we a whole volunteer staffed agency, I mean, we operate a facility, we have a building, we manage 2 trucks, so we have a whole lot of stuff that leadership has to do, and so if we can take bandwidth off of them, or if we can unload some of their stuff, then that really improves our efficiency as a team and allows us to grow in other ways. So man hours is the short answer. At 160 calls a year times 5 leadership per call times half an hour saved, it's like 400 man hours a year just off the top of my head, and it's probably more than that, because then there's just one less thing I have to worry about.
So I want to go back, you did mention it, it's just an area that I'm not familiar enough with, is the potential for replication. And so I wonder if you could just speak to that a little bit more. I mean, I think this is very interesting, but you were talking about a very customizable tool, and there's something very specific about Boulder context, and that's why you want to do it this way, but did that reduce its replicability also?
You mean in terms of other commercial apps that have already done it, or in terms of like how it can be ported to another team? Okay, so yeah, so that's also a good point. So I think it's not so much customized for Boulder as it is for this team, and this team specifically, the kind of difference between us and other existing commercial products is we're mountain rescue versus, say, a fire department. Because fire departments have very sort of rigid ways that they approach various scenes that they go to, normally following a very strict ICS protocol. What we have is a distributed group of 60 volunteers around Boulder County that we have to bring together quickly every time there's a call, which is not something that some volunteer fire departments have to do, but definitely not on the scale of personnel. So that's something that we do, that this app would do, that commercial apps don't. And other mountain rescue teams and other sort of water rescue teams have a similar sort of demographic of their team that we do. So that's how this kind of thing can be ported to other groups. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool.
Any questions from the audience?
Softballs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
or comments,
yeah.
or support, or
So yeah, my comment is just in support of this app. I'm also known for the non-rescue team, and can say that I think, you know, a lot of man hours would definitely be saved. I think one of the biggest things when I get paid is, you know, I might need something like this. For example, Friday night, we had a big search going on. We had a practice the next day. I got an email, a phone call, a text. There was probably a few people that had to like get up from whatever they were doing, go to drive to the cage, and then coordinate all of these different people. It probably took hours of their time. So when you think about these people that are full-time volunteers, we also have full-time jobs. So I do think it would improve response time greatly, and it would also allow us to be able to just work more effectively.
And do stuff with the rest of our lives too.
Huh?
Do stuff with the rest of our time, not just with the rest of our
Right.
I just had a question about expanding this outward, because obviously volunteer management is something that everyone struggles with, especially during disaster times. I was wondering if you saw any applicability for this for like an emerging group during disaster.
No, it's absolutely useful for that. It's basically anytime you need to get, you have a group of leadership and a group of volunteers that are coordinated by the leadership that need to get to a place quickly. So that's everything from a flash mob to, we need, you know, the mudslingers are a good example. The Boulder mudslingers during the floods who kind of, okay, we need to go to this person's house and we need to get the mud out of their basement. All it would take is that group sort of turning on this app and saying, guys, this is the address we're going to. Oh crap, no, that changed. We got the wrong address, we got the wrong info. We're going to this house instead, and then everybody can say, yes, I'm coming in 2 hours, I'll be there later tonight, whatever. So it's really any volunteer group that needs to come together quickly and disseminate information quickly.
let's go. The mic's there, and then we'll scoop around the back.
Yeah, quickly. So I'm not familiar with the 911 dispatch kind of schedule of things, but once you guys get the call, is there any potential to use this to either report info on your activities back to the dispatcher or back to the actual person in crisis who's in the field? Or is it only kind of one-way input?
Yeah, well, there's sort of a barrier there just in terms of how we talk to dispatch anyway. A lot of times the person will call 911 and we'll get a phone number given to us by 911 if the person does in fact have cell signal. So that's the kind of thing that could be disseminated via this app, and then we could call them. Dispatch sort of has a conversation, and unless there's a very serious crisis, they'll generally hang up and give us the information about where to go. And so on our end, if we have a phone number, then that's kind of the best way we can do that.
I'll go here and then back.
I have a suggestion more than a question. In addition to this being a tool for the volunteer group, I mean, we're all required to wear a helmet when we ride our bicycles, and not everybody does it, but responsible people do it. So I suggest that people who go on their hikes might be able to register with the app, maybe drop those pins on their suggested route, and indicate a time of how much they intend to spend on the tracks. And although there's no signal everywhere, there's signal in some spotty places. The app could kind of, for these 2 hours that they're on the track, indicate how far along they are, and if you don't hear from them after 2 hours, you might know that there's a problem. Or if you get a 911 from somebody who's on the same track, you can maybe ask them to check around them if possible.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So one of the parts of our mission is outdoor education as well, and so having that available really, I think that would be kind of on the blue sky end of our feature sort of wish list. But at the same time, since outdoor education and sort of safety awareness is part of our mission, I think that that's a really great point, and that's something that we can include on our list.
So I'm just wondering, if you're going for the 20,000, how far do you expect to get with that initial investment?
So luckily or unluckily for us, the app house that we worked with, we've actually rescued one of their developers before, and so they've already committed to some in-kind contribution to actually help us get a core set of functional features done within the 20,000. But yeah, sort of happens when you work in Boulder.
So just to clarify, that was, I was laughing, I didn't hear. So that was like an MVP or an actual first round of the app with the core features built?
First round of the app with core functional features built, yeah. We want a working product at the end of this.
Question?
I'm Brad Weber from that development shop, and that was the comment that I was going to add, is that we have the personal connection. Stacy, one of our project managers, was running at high altitude and ruptured her patella tendon and could not be rescued by a helicopter, so if not for the organization, then it would have been an entirely different situation up there. So our thanks, and we'd love to help.
I'm going to jump in with a quick moderator question.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious, because you will be taking data in about where rescues are happening. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about doing something further with those data, with capturing them or analyzing them or making them open to highlight hazard areas or something like that?
I'm not sure how the making, I feel like there's probably privacy issues with making the data open, though that is a possibility. Though we do log a lot of this data, and one of those other blue sky features is actually linking this app with our existing SQL server that records has mission logging info. And we're in the process of developing dashboards right now for internal use. And if we find that the information's not super secret, then we can actually make that stuff available.
Page wall, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget your pager.
I turned it off for this.
My 1989 father called and he wants that back. So that was, this concludes the round of the pitching. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take, I'm timing but not watching time. I may use my, so we're going to take 20 minutes? Yep. So we're going to take a 20-minute break. And these guys are going to go and deliberate and make a very difficult decision.
But before they do that, and everybody needs to get outside for a conference photo.
Aha,
so
yes.
we do that right now before anybody does anything.
Okay, perfect.
And then do all the things that Shadrock's telling you to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so are they ready to take a photo right now?
That's my understanding. That's what
all
I was
right.
told to say.
So let's all get out there and take a photo, and then we will reconvene in here in 20 minutes for the big announcement. Thank you very much for coming. So we've got to announce a winner. So again, like I said, everybody was wonderful, and we do want to follow up with a couple of the groups. But there was one pitch that we felt, or the judges felt, hit all of the boxes that we were looking at in probably the strongest way. And all of the groups hit a lot of the boxes. I really liked seeing the community engagement. I liked seeing the way people were thinking about how are people going to use data, how's it going to serve. But there was one group that what they're doing, we felt like through the process of doing that, they are also building community around it. And that is Trends Online. It was very, very tough. I mean, the judges went out there, and I had said, yeah, we'll have 20 minutes. Do you think that's going to be enough time? And we started talking about it. They were like, oh yeah, totally. It was like, I was like, guys, the buzz is going off. People are there. You have to decide. And there was a couple ideas that so your competition was like, it was painfully hairline close. So I'll be following up with you directly. Do you guys want to say anything at all? Or this is...
Thank you very much.
All right.
Honestly, I felt like I needed to rescue somebody in order to sound impressive. And I haven't yet. So
well, yeah,
I'll work on that.
So that's the thing is another thing to keep in mind is that you've all seen each other and you've seen each other's work, and hopefully you're aware of some of the other organizations that are doing this stuff and where you could get help to develop these ideas anyway, with groups like UR Boulder, with coming to us and talk to us for applying for things. So I'm serious about this. We do want to follow up with you guys and see if there's some ways that we can help move all of these along, because as the Chief Resilience Officer, Greg was saying, God, these are all really good ideas, and I can see where all of these would help the community. Maybe not as the end-all be-all product, but that there's really fertile ground there. So we do want to follow up, and we really want to try and help that. As part of this process, so I'm going to be working with them now and Greg to get Trends Online off the ground. That means it belongs to all of you. It's going to be an open source thing, so if you want to get involved in that and help that project, we would love to have you. I see someone already saying yes, they want to do that right there. If you want to use the data, if you want to build an app on top of that, if there's some way you want to get involved in that, you can reach out to them, let us know. We'll be doing a press release through the city. We'll be blogging about it. We've got everybody's email addresses for the conference, so we'll be doing some follow-ups that way as well. But if you're an applicant and you do want to sort of keep engaging with us and see if we can keep moving your ideas forward a little bit, we'd love to help do that. So I am, by my own timer, 12 seconds shy of 5 minutes. Any questions? I can't believe that this is finally over. I've been thinking about it for a long time.
It's just getting started though, too.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly. No, this is the first step. So, okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap it up. That's the tech challenge. I will be following up with applicants to see if there's a way we can have a meeting and move some of this forward. And we will be talking right now, in fact. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you guys for applying.